Wow. How do you live up to that? My goodness. How do you know that the best you'll ever be is when you apply for a new job or they introduce you at a conference? That's the best that it gets. How do you love Rick Bezet? You know what? I don't know a person in the world that doesn't love Rick Bezet. There are people that don't like Randy, but there's nobody that doesn't. I love these guys. These are my buddies. Randy and I on the front seat in a conference together is not a good thing. Isn't that right, Amy? And Rick's a salesman. I'm going to tell you what, you've got to be to plant a church like this. I remember when he came to us, he said, I want to plant a church. Where do you want to plant it? Little Rock, Arkansas. New Life Church, Little Rock. I said, okay. Remember after he got it going, I came over to visit. It's in Conway. Conway's not even close to Little Rock. It could be New Life Memphis, or New Life, what's the one on the other way? Something Springs or whatever that other town is. Huh? Yeah, whatever. Fort Smith is what I was thinking of. So I learned something from Rick. Just plant a church anywhere you want to and name a city and call it New Life, New York City. If you want to be out in the middle of Arkansas, doesn't really matter. And now it's everywhere. It's Little Rock and all over Arkansas. And what a great guy. We just love these guys. And we served together on the board of the Ark. We planted almost 700 churches in 16 years, Rick, and just an amazing, amazing thing. So what I want to do with my time, and I'm going to talk to you about just personal experience. I want to talk to you about 4 questions that have shaped our journey as a church at Seacoast Church in Charleston, South Carolina. 4 questions that have shaped our journey. And I'm going to guarantee you this, I probably will not get to number 4. I like to tell stories, and I'll tell stories, and other stories will come up, and I'll tell those, and we probably won't get clear to the last one, but it doesn't matter. And let me tell you why it doesn't. It's an important point. But here's the deal. This doesn't even build on each other. It's just 4 concepts, and there's only one of them that I think that God will speak into your heart. When you're at a conference like this, just be listening to that one thing, that one idea, that one thing, and then you can discuss it with your team. And so hopefully there'll be an idea and there'll be a thought that will help you where you are right now. So let me go through 4 questions. Here's the first one. First one is this: if nothing were impossible, what would I attempt for God? If nothing were impossible, what would I attempt for God? So 29 years ago, we started Seacoast Church, and we wanted to be a kind of a different kind of a church. I was raised in a Pentecostal, charismatic background, and some of the things I saw there I just really resonated with, and other things were just kind of weird, kind of spooky at times. And we wanted to be a practical but spirit-filled, non-spooky but kind of mystical church. That's kind of what we wanted to be. In fact, we did the Jim Collins Good to Great. We have to figure out what you're the best in the world at. And here's what you're looking at somebody who leads a church that's the best in the world. And here it is. We're the best in the world at being practical, spirit-filled, non-spooky, kind of mystical, in multiple locations, done cheaply. And if you'll have 6 adjectives in who you are, you can be the best in the world, because it kind of narrows it down to people who just do that stuff. But we wanted to reach out to unchurched people, and we also wanted to have a large launch. One of the principles in the Ark is that we try to give you a large launch. And there's a reason. There's a lot of ways to plant churches, but there are reasons for that. I am married to my girlfriend for 40 years, going to be 41 this summer, and we have 4 kids, and they all live in the Charleston area, and I have 14 grandkids. And the oldest one's 9 years old, and so they're blonde, and they're all about this size. And what we know about that, having had 14 of them, is that birth weight is important. Birth weight is important. We've had a couple of premature babies that had to be in the hospital for one of them for several weeks, and we just cheered them on, and they've caught up, and they're great now. But the bigger they are at birth, the better chance they have of surviving and doing well. And so in planning a church, it's always been our desire that we start big, that we have a large launch. And so back 30 years ago, 29 years ago, we called 16,000 homes that lived in the area where we wanted to plant a church, and we asked them a couple of questions. We said, do you attend church? And if they said yes, we said, great, keep going. And if they said no, we said, why do you think people don't attend church these days? And we made a list. And what we found was that the reasons people gave us for not attending church had very little to do with God, theology. It had a lot to do with the church, people, sociology. And so we felt like we were at liberty to say, well, what if we changed some of those things? What if we did things a little bit differently? And so we invited everybody, and we had 340 people our first week. 340 people. And we had a movie theater, and that's exactly how many seats that we had for adults. And I can remember calling my best friend from Denver, Colorado, that's where I'm from, and he'd just gotten a great job in our home church. And I said, Terry, you've got to come to Charleston because revival's fixing to break out here. We had 340 people our first week. By the end of the month, we'll have 500. By probably 3 months, they'll be writing articles about us in Charisma and Christianity Today. It's just going to be incredible. A revival is breaking out in Charleston. And so he quit his job and he came. Now, revival did break out, but it was a Gideon revival. Anybody ever had one of those? Where you have less people every week than you had the week before? They didn't tell me that was normative for a little while for churches, that they had a lot of people, looky-loos, to see you and all that, and then it drops down. I didn't know that. But see, ours didn't grow for 5 years. For 3 years, we had less people every year than we had the year before. How do you know that that'll bless you and keep you real positive, okay? So we like to say that Seacoast is the slowest growing megachurch in the history of the world. By year 5, we had grown back to 340 people, the amount we had in the very first week. And I remember being excited about that. I thought, my God, what are we going to do with all of these people? I mean, we've got 8 kids in the nursery now. This is unbelievable. And it's just a phenomenal thing. I really did. I grew up in a little church, so I didn't know what a big church was like. And so one day I went to the beach, and I got a lawn chair and a notebook and a Diet Coke. And I asked the question that I gave you. I said, God, if nothing were impossible, and here's how I like to pray it, and I pray this in every prayer I pray these days. God, your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it's done in heaven. And what that means is, God, if your will was being done in Mount Pleasant, suburb of Charleston, South Carolina, if your will was being done on earth like it's done in heaven, what would that look like? Have you ever prayed that prayer? Have you ever prayed that prayer? God, if your will was being done in my city right here on earth as it's being done in heaven, what would that look like? So I prayed it. I said, God, give me an answer. I want to know. And I got a number. Wasn't expecting a number, but I got a number. It was 1993. We'd been going for 5 years. And did I mention we didn't grow at all? At 5 years, we're right now back to the same number of people we had when we started our opening day. And the Lord dropped a number of 2,000 in my heart. What if we could reach 2,000 people by the year 2000? That was 7 years away. Now, there was absolutely nothing in our past that said that kind of influx of people was going to be in our future. How many of you are glad that God is not limited by our failures or what we do or whatever, that he has fresh ideas? And some of you, that's good news today. It really is. You need to hear that. And so what I did is I got a notebook, and I've still got it. And it was Vision 2000. And what I did, I'm just a nerd like this. I got a spreadsheet, and I said, okay, we have 350 people today. It was 340, but we always, round up. And don't look at me like that. You guys do that too. Somebody asks you how many people go to your church. You give them last year's Easter attendance, and you round up. Don't you? Huh? That's what they give to Outreach Magazine. I'm telling you that. Whatever. So anyway, so I put a spreadsheet and I said, okay, we need to grow by 15% every year. 15, 20%, something like that. And if we did, how many people would we have in our auditorium, and how many services would we have, and when would we have to have more, and how many small groups would we need, and how many small group leaders do we need? And so I use that as a prayer thing every morning, just praying, God, for those new leaders and the new people, and thank you, God, for all that's going to go on there, and started planning for it, because I asked God, if nothing were impossible, what would you do in this place? And can I tell you, by 1999, we hit 2,000 people with absolutely nothing in our background to say that was a possibility. And you say, well, is it all about numbers? Well, yeah, it is. As a matter of fact. Our goal is to depopulate hell and populate heaven. And so that's kind of what it's about. It kind of is about that. And then we've kind of done the same thing and had those moments from time to time. In fact, writing the vision down, Habakkuk 2 and verse 2 says, the Lord answered me, write down the vision, write it clearly on a clay tablet, so whoever reads it can run and tell others. It needs to be a real clear vision, real concise vision of what you think that God has called you to do and take. Now, so I want to ask you, here's some transferable principles. Ask yourself and your team, what would we attempt if we were 10 times bolder? What if we went away from today's session or this conference, we said, you know what, we're just going to ask bold things from God, and we're going to do it to the 10x. I walked into the children's department yesterday when I was at home, and I just like to walk around and be a blessing, And so I walked in, and they had this chart on the wall. They were all proud of it. They said, hey, do you want to, we've got how many kids we think we're going to have at VBS. Do you want to put a number up there? Because they had their names signed and a number they were projecting there. It was probably a gambling deal that somebody was going to win some money or something. I don't know what it was. It's kind of how we roll. And so I looked over at the chart. I said, are you serious? I was laughing, because if you'll smile, people will take anything. And I said, give me a pen. And I got a marker, and I marked on it THS. You know what that means? Tiny heart syndrome. I said, you guys have tiny heart syndrome. Come on, let's believe God for something great this year. Why not? Why not? Why not? See, it takes bold action to achieve breakthrough results. Bold action to achieve breakthrough results. I'm reading a book right now about the Chicago World's Fair in 1892. It would be boring as a box of rocks to most of you, but I love it. I just love it. And the 1892 World's Fair was amazing for a lot of reasons, because nobody thought they could pull it off. It's kind of like a church plant. They had to build an entire mega city in about 18 months. The previous World's Fair was in France, and they built the Eiffel Tower. And so they had to come up with something better than that. And what they came up with was the Ferris wheel. You just read about the Ferris wheel. Before they built the Ferris wheel, it was absolutely impossible. Absolutely impossible. And just look it up, Wikipedia. It tells the truth all the time. You just look up Wikipedia. Of all of the innovations that came out of the Chicago World's Fair. And one of the reasons is because it was absolutely impossible to do. And so they just got together and they thought, well, let's try things that if we fail, everybody will probably figure that that's what we should do. And they actually had some breakthroughs. And so I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to take bold action. Be 10 times bolder. Are we writing the vision down? Is it simple and clear? So the very first question that shaped us is, if nothing were impossible, what would I attempt for God? And we go over that over and over and over again. Now, here's the second one, and it's a little different. I want you to listen to it. Well, no. Yeah, it is kind of. All right, here we go. How can our current limitations be used as a catalyst for future growth? How can our current limitations be used as a catalyst for future growth? Here's the question I wanted you to hear. Look at this. We're going to put it up on the screen. What would you do if you knew there were no limits? Think about that. Think about that. Think about that. Okay, the first question was what? What if nothing were impossible? What could I accomplish for God? This one's a little subtly different. I want you to get it. What would we do in our church, in our situation, in our ministry, if we knew there were no limits? I love motivational posters. Do you guys like those? I keep them on my Pinterest account. Don't laugh. You have one too. You just don't put your name on it. I do. So I want to show you a few of the motivational posters. Look at this next one. You guys put it up there. Okay, this is a girl, and she's running up the steps of the stadium, and she says, limitations only exist if you let them. Now, she's not going to let any limitations hold her back, right? Look at the next one. Look at the next one. It says, limitations live only in our minds, but if we use our imaginations, our possibilities become limitless. I love those things. Look at the next one. The problem, it sounds great, it's just not true. Unfortunately, you do have a few limitations. Do you agree with that? Anybody here? Anybody have any dollar limitations, budget limitations? Is there any talent limitations? You're up here and you saw this. Let me tell you, here's the key to growing a church. You got to have one of these red pianos. Everywhere I have been, and they have two of them. Did you see that? They have two of them. And then once you get those, get you one of these Hillsong stands, because the anointing just flows out of these things. I've got the address right here. It's a guy in Australia, right here, Sydney. Here's the website. You can come up and look at it. But you were watching them do the worship, and you're going, my goodness, if we had worship talent like that, we'd build a great church too. But we all have limitations. We have talent limitations. We have all kinds of limitations. Look at the next slide. Superman. Superman even has them. He says, I acknowledge that my relatively low tolerance to kryptonite is a substantial limitation. Okay, so what should you do? Here's a couple of options. Number one, ignore them. Look at the next slide. Look at this. Look at this. I love this. Know your limitations and then ignore them. I love the guy. He's running up on a mountain. He's only got a leg and a half. I love it. He's not going to let his limitations hold him back. Here's my favorite slide right here. Look at this next one. This is a guy that obviously kind of underestimated what he could do. Limitations. It's better to know them and be called a wimp than to ignore them and be called a dumbass. Some of you right now are saying, can you say that in church? Sure you can. I'm from South Carolina. You guys, a dumbass is a stupid fish, and you don't want to be a stupid fish. You know that. All right. So I'll say it like this. Nothing is impossible with God, but you do have limits. Let's look at the Bible. Should we do that? Let's look at the next verse. Put it up there. Let's read this. Paul says, therefore, in order to keep me from becoming conceited, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Let's learn about 5 or 6 things off of that. Go to the next slide. Look what it says. What we know about limitations. Here's number 1. Everybody has them. Everybody has them. I was given a limitation. You think somebody else doesn't. We always look at other people, but we all have them. Look at the next one. They have a purpose. It's like God didn't go, oh, my bad, I forgot to give you that. No, for him it was to keep him from being conceited. Look at the next one. It's okay for you to ask God to take them away. When you have a limitation, financial, building-wise, talent-wise, Whatever it happens to be, it's okay to plead with God. He says 3 times he asked God to take it away. But if it lasts, look at this, look at the next one. You can either whine about him or rejoice in him. He says, therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses. And then look at the last one. God will use them if you allow him to. He says, my power is made perfect in what? In my strength? No, in my weakness. See, there are a lot of benefits in power and limitations. They help you grow. Limitations help you grow. I'm a photographer of sorts. I like to do it. And, I still have a whole bag full of all the lenses and all that and carry them around. And I've lately just gone with just a little bitty camera with one lens, and I take a different lens every time, because if you'll do just one lens over and over and over again, limit yourself to what you can do, that you can become better. It helps you to grow. They also help to increase your freedom. There's a study about little kindergarten kids, and several universities have done this, and what they did is they went to a playground, and they took down all the fences, playground. Then they have recess, and all the little kids would go huddle in the middle of the ground out there. They went and they put back the fence up, and the kids would go clear to the edges of the fence. So limitations actually provide guardrails and freedom rather than hindering our freedom. And limitations stimulate creativity. They stimulate creativity. See, I think creativity is just desperation in a pretty package. I really do. You guys are multi-site. We were one of the first multi-site churches to come along. And it wasn't because we woke up one day and thought, man, what a great strategy that would be. Let me tell you why we're multi-site. It's because our city said you can't build anything else. We were building a larger auditorium, wanted to build a larger auditorium, bought land all around us, paid $4 million for land all around us. Today it's worth a ton more than that, but it was more than we had. And our city zoned our land where we couldn't build anything on it and said, you can never build a larger building right here. Well, let me tell you what I did. I went back to my office because it was an embarrassment. It was front page of the paper for weeks and on the television and all of this. And I did what I always do when I'm discouraged. Anybody ever get discouraged in ministry? Yeah. Well, you're going to get discouraged. Discouragement is the occupational hazard of ministry. A lady in my church one time told me, Pastor, it's okay to be discouraged. How did she say it? Oh, she said it like this. It's okay to sit on the pity potty, so long as you don't sit there long enough to get ring around the hiney. And I thought, that's great. Just got to get up. Got to get up. That'll preach. All right, so there's your sermon for the weekend. So when I get discouraged, I'd go to my office and close the windows down and turn the lights off and put on some country music. Because in country music, they always lose something, right? Lost my dog, my girlfriend, my truck, whatever. They say if you play it backwards, that they get them all back. I don't know. But I'm here, listen, I'm in my office just moaning and complaining over this deal. And I had a revelation from God that I live on every day. And that's this. That it's real hard to surprise an omniscient God. God's never had a day where he got up and said, gee, I didn't see that one coming. My bad. Here's what's important about that. God is at work, even when it's a surprise to you. And for some of you here today, there's been a surprise in your ministry. There's been a surprise in your family. There's been a surprise in who left your church or what door closed. There's been a surprise. And just because it's a surprise to you, it's not a surprise to God. And if it's not a surprise to God, listen to this. He's at work on a solution before you even knew there was a problem. Huh? Yeah. And so I got that day. And out of that desperate moment came this concept called multi-site. I can remember saying to our staff, I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to rent a little building down the road. And we're going to have, children's stuff there, and the whole drill. We're going to have worship and all of that. But we're going to have the message is going to be on video, and that's what's going to tie us together. I remember my brother, who was on staff. Be careful about hiring family. But my brother was on staff, and he said to me, that's the stupidest idea I've ever seen in my life. What makes you think that a group of people are going to go and sit in a rented building to listen to you on a screen? He said that. I said, I don't know. You might be right, but you're now in charge of it. Make it happen. So where's the guy that drove me right here to last night? Picked me up from there. No, it wasn't. No, this morning, right here. What's your name again? Micah. That's Micah. It's a biblical name. Did you know that? Anyway, it's good. It's a good book. But anyway, so Micah's driving me from the airport. Micah's in ministry school and has been in ministry school. And he said, do you have a brother? I knew where this was going. He said, yeah. And he said, we got to read his book, The Multi-Site Revolution, in our ministry class. I said, yeah, guys all over do that. He said, how does that make you feel? And I didn't want to tell him that it made me throw up just a little bit in my mouth. Because he's the one said it would never work, and now he's there. You got to read his book if you're going to do multi-site. I'm just getting some stuff out right now. I'm just getting it out. Next slide. As a team, I want you to think about this. You might want to take a picture. I know how you do that. Take one of this. I'll get over here where you can see me in it. Okay, what we are and what we want to be. There's always a gap, okay? As a team, what is the limitation we face between where we are now and where we want to be, and how can we allow God to turn it into a strength? And I believe there are going to be innovations that come out of that. They're incredible, okay? Okay, just got a few minutes. Let's look at number 3. This was an interesting one. Third question, how can we give our people what they want instead of what they think they want? Now, let me tell you where I got this one from. I got it from the great theologian, Mark Cuban. You know him? He owns the Dallas Mavericks and a lot of technology companies and stuff. And I read his blog one day, and his blog said this. It got my attention. Never listen to the customer. You always read, the customer's always right. He said, never listen to the customer. And the principle here was that if you're trying something new or doing something new, that if you ask the customers what it should look like, they always default to the past. And he said, if Henry Ford would have asked the customers what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. But he created something they didn't know about. And he made this point, he said, leaders are tasked to create the future. And if you're going to create the future, you can't give people what they think they want. You got to give them what they want. I wish I would have known that at the beginning, because let me tell you how that works itself out in church life. So in the beginning, I told you that we started with 340 people, and then it kept dwindling. And you got to understand how our church kind of came together. We had a planting church, which was a charismatic church, great church, kind of like Jack Hayford's church. That was the model of it. And we had about 55 people that came from there. Then there was a little Word of Faith church that closed its doors the day that we started in Mount Pleasant. About 35 people came from there. And then there was an Anglican group, Episcopal group, that had gotten the left foot of fellowship from the church because of spiritual gifts and some things like that. There were about 35 of them, and they came together. Then the rest of them were unchurched people from our community. So it was a very interesting deal. And so about 4 months in, a representative of each one of those groups came in to talk to me. And the first one was the representative from our home church, and they had a small group there, and they were fairly wealthy people, to be honest with you. And they came in, and they wanted an appointment, and I said, okay. And they came in, and they said, we don't like the music here. And I thought, neither do I, but I can't throw it under the bus. We're trying the best we can. But they said this. They said, you know what? In our home church, we sang I Exalt Thee. Do you remember that song? I exalt thee, I exalt thee. Great song. We sung it every week in our home church. It was the anthem that we opened up with. And they said, we have never sung it at Seacoast. Now, we don't have to sing it every week, but if you will sing it at least once a month, my family will feel like we can continue to come here. And in my great wisdom, I said the music's not for sale. And they left, and their whole small group left. Second group to come in was from the Word of Faith Church. And they were kind of faith, confession, kind of a lot of demonstrations and stuff. And they came in and they said, when are we going to do the stuff? And I said, what stuff? They had runners, that would run during the service, and they had a lot of things going on. And in my great wisdom, as a young church planter, I said, that's why your church didn't grow. Not that ours was, but I just told them that. I said, we don't do everything we know how to do all at one service. And so we're not going to be doing that. They left. Third group came in, and it was the Anglican group. They were a lot nicer. And they said, when are we going to do the stuff? And I thought, what stuff? And they said, the liturgy. I said, I don't know, but I can try. We're willing to do anything right now. Actually, I said, well, we're probably not going to do that, but I said it in a nicer way. Now, I want you to hang with me here. Each of those groups wanted the same thing. What did they want? They wanted the power and presence of Jesus, because that's what everybody wants. The seekers that come into your church want the power and presence of Jesus. They don't want better music. They probably get better music in the bar on Saturday. They want the presence and power of Jesus. And they probably couldn't even communicate that, but that is an inborn thing. We all want that. What did they think they want? They thought they wanted the experience or the package that came in. Okay? Here's what's here. Listen, remember this. God's presence is an eternal principle. Put an always sticker on that. The package it comes in is temporal. There's always an expiration on every one of those packages. There's an expiration date. I learned a long time ago, or am learning, the best thing to do when the horse dies is dismount, okay? So the quest for God's presence resulted in the greatest innovations that we have. At our church, we now have response time at the end of the service, and we have candles and communion and crosses, and I used to not be able to give an altar call. I'd give an altar call. How many of you want to get saved? Nobody. How many of you want to be filled with the Holy Spirit? I already am, thanks. How many of you want to be healed? We're doing good. Anybody have a dog or a cat that's got a problem? I get down to where we had a big enough thing that we could give. I couldn't get anybody to do it. If you came to Seacoast today, you watch. It's an altar call for everybody. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. And the presence of the Lord is so very thick. I'm not saying you have to do that. If we had more time, I'd tell you why we came to what we did and the whole process there. But what I want to ask you is this. Where do people encounter the presence and power of Jesus in your gatherings? Because that's really, really important. I am so tired of contemporary churches that all sound alike, that you go in and if Jesus wasn't there, it really wouldn't matter. Where does the presence and power of Jesus? Because when you figure that out, then you unleash God to do more than you could ask or imagine. Well, I'm not getting to question number 4. 3 is enough. 3 is enough. But here's what I do want to say today. The question number 4 was this. I'll just give it to you. What will be my fingerprint after I leave? What will be my fingerprint after I leave? And that had to do with being a prevailing church for multiple generations and pouring into the next generation. What's your plan for that? But what I want to say today is, here's what I really believe. I get to see the church from a very kind of high view, being involved in the Ark and getting to do a lot of things around the world. And I really do believe that the greatest churches that our world has ever seen yet are yet to be built. Some of them are sitting right here in this room. Some of them are a dream in some of your hearts. And God wants to use you. So how about we boldly believe God for greater things? How about we wear our limitations as a badge of honor and let them propel us to greater heights? How about we give our people what they want and let them be bathed in God's presence in inviting ways? And how about we pour ourselves into the next generation of leaders and build churches that prevail for decades? Does that sound about right for you? I'm all in for that. Would you bow your head for prayer?